everybody doing today? Yeah, I'm really excited to be here at Cosmoverse. I'm Yaz. I'm the head of DevRel at Celestia Labs. And the topic for today is defeating the cosmic dragon, or Celestia's strategy to defend Cosmos. So let's figure out what the dragon is. So first, let's think of Cosmos community as it exists today. What's it like? You can think of Cosmos as this cosmic castle, this fortress in the galaxy. You have a lot of different conferences happening, like the Cosmoverse Gateway Nebula Summit, a lot of different innovations happening in Cosmos. So Cosmos can be seen with its community and its core development as this cosmic fortress that exists. So what is the Cosmos fortress today? Cosmos has successfully created developer adoption around application chains. So currently, everyone can spin up an app chain using Cosmos, which is really powerful. Cosmos has developer toolkits that allow deploying blockchains easily. One of the first experiences I had with Cosmos was, deploying my own blockchain on testnet, and that was such a powerful moment, and there's nothing like that out there. The other thing about Cosmos is the interchain, right? So the interchain allows for an interesting community dynamic to happen. So the dynamic is the entire Cosmos is more stronger than the sum of its parts. Finally, Cosmos developers. Cosmos developers are actually very unique in Web3 in combining strengths of app and core development together. But there's a problem. Now, what's the problem? A dragon flies over the Cosmos fortress. Now, what is that dragon? Let's define the dragon. So the problem is, if we define it as a cosmic dragon, is the problems in Cosmos are found internally. There is no outside threat to Cosmos. The threat is actually internal. So the first point, fragmentation versus decentralization. In decentralization, the difference between that and fragmentation is reaching consensus. So your community is not decentralized if you can't reach consensus. It's actually fragmented. So that distinction, that thin line is around trying to reach consensus despite the fact that there can be a lot of politics involved. Now, politics hamper the growth of Cosmos. Now, me as an outsider to Cosmos, I'm not really have full context on Cosmos politics. As an outsider looking in, the politics kind of makes me not necessarily want to be involved and get to learn more about Cosmos just because of the political elements at play. Cosmos also does not have a cohesive narrative, right? We talk about the interchain, but for me as a developer, I don't understand fully what the interchain means, what kind of narrative is there around the interchain. The other thing is around app chains when you have validators. Now, if I'm when you have validators and consensus, if I'm a developer in Cosmos, app chains have to have their own consensus. Now, what does that mean? It turns out that it means that you're going to have a lot of mercenary behavior with validators. Validators can start looking at all different Cosmos chains that are coming out. They're like, okay, I'm going to validate over here, but there's not necessarily any alignment with any specific chains. Also, you'll see there's a slowdown of developer adoption in Cosmos due to the fact that consensus is very expensive. If I'm a developer, I want to build my own app chain, I don't want to care about consensus and maintaining a validator set. That's too much for me to worry about as a developer. The other thing with Cosmos is it will hit scalability issues when you have increased adoption. If you have a successful app chain on Cosmos, you're going to run into scalability issues the more users you have, and then transaction costs actually increase significantly. And then on-chain governance is actually terrible governance, and we're going to talk about why later. And there's also a lack of core dev culture and storytelling around the core devs. So now that we defined the cosmic dragon, let's talk about what opportunities we have. So what is the opportunities right now? Let's talk about what we have in Cosmos. Cosmos SDK is the best tool to instantiate a new blockchain. There's nothing like it on the market. Tendermint is battle tested. So the effect of spinning out your own blockchain and having them all interconnected with the interchain means that Tendermint can be tested with different chains in Cosmos. IBC as a built-in bridging mechanism is actually amazing for developer experience. If I'm spinning out my own blockchain and I have built-in bridging that allows me to bridge asset from one chain to another, from a developer experience, that's really powerful. And Cosmoverse is a great new avenue for developer adoption because there it creates a new developer market for Cosmos, and people can be like, okay, I want to build smart contract. Now you have Cosmoverse, and actually you can do developer adoption using Cosmoverse. And Cosmos can embrace more storytelling, and we'll talk about why storytelling is more important. And Cosmos currently embraces modularity, but it only embraces modular software. And we're going to talk about later what other things you can embrace in modularity. So now that we talked about the problem and opportunity, let's talk about strategy to defeat the Cosmic Dragon. So you have three strategies, right? You can escape, you can defend yourself, and you can attack. And now we're going to talk about each one and what you can do. So the escape strategy is basically maintaining the status quo. Basically not doing anything. Let the Cosmic Dragon take over the fortress. It's like the threat from within. Basically, Cosmos community can continue lacking standardization and core dev coordination around the scheme modes, around CosmoverseHQ, Tendermint, Cosmoverse, and IBC. Cosmos can continue not having effective narrative and storytelling. And Cosmos can continue embracing the app-chain thesis with mercenary validator culture. And then Cosmos can continue its on-chain governance practices. Now, I think we all agree, escape is a bad strategy. We can't abandon the Cosmos fortress. So if escape is not viable, what's next? Let's talk about defense. So we want to defend Cosmos. You got to think about what is worth defending. We already talked about the 4 different offerings in Cosmos, like the most of Cosmos, IBC, CosmoverseHQ, Comet, BFD, and Cosmoverse. All right, so how do you defend them? You can reinforce the walls with 2 different strategies. You can create standard and specs processes around your key modes, and then because you have the standards and specs, you can innovate on better Heartwork mechanisms. Now, what do we mean when we say standards and specs? So standards and specs actually create a lot of new cool things that can actually reinforce and defend Cosmos. So in standards and specs, it allows for improvement proposals to exist. Think about Ethereum's EIP process. Think about Bitcoin's BIP process. Think about Python's BEP process. The problem with it is it kind of slows down core development, but it decentralizes it and increases core developer contributions when you have standards and specs. They increase storytelling. So core devs in Cosmos become heroes on their journey to contribute to CosmoverseHQ or any other key mode. They become heroes defending the fortress. They also, with storytelling, you can create live tweet thread, you can do, recorded meetings, meeting notes, which are all ways to allow the community to track progress of contributions. Think about Tim Bako. Tim Bako would do live tweet threads about the Ethereum EIP process on all core dev calls, and now he's at the core center of all core dev calls because of effective storytelling and the community in Ethereum following what's happening in the EIP process. Storytelling is very important. It also adds skin in the game. So when you have skin in the game, let's say somebody's like, oh, I would like to see this new idea or feature in Cosmos as a core dev. Great, create a proposal, create the specs, champion your proposal. It's actually much more powerful having skin in the game to actually bring changes you want to see in Cosmos. Standards and specs also increase the opportunity for client diversity. When you have standards and specs, you have more core contributors and developers building different clients in different languages, like in Rust, TypeScript, whichever language you can build it in. How can Celestia help on the defense strategy? So the Celestia improvement proposal process. If we published it on the blog today, blog.celestia.org. We're gonna announce, tweet out later about the CIP process. It's an opportunity to help incubate Cosmos core development under the, work by the Celestia community. It contains an initial roster of Cosmos core devs willing to participate in the process. And many others are welcome from the core dev community to participate in the process. It introduces the concept of rough consensus, which is actually around technical decision making, just like it exists in EIP and IETF. Rough consensus does not exist in Cosmos core development right now. So the CIP process is scheduled to launch post-mainnet for Celestia. If you have questions about it later, feel free to ask me. Is there anything else we can do to improve defenses? So now we talked about standards and specs, but what else can we do with that? Well, we can change the Heartwork mechanism in Cosmos Chain. That allows us to activate those new features and standards and specs. So the current Heartwork mechanism in Cosmos is actually, when I first heard of it, I couldn't believe it. So to explain how Heartwork activation happened in Cosmos, the community votes via on-chain governance on a Heartwork block. So like you submit a block, you submit a governance proposal on-chain for the block activation number, the community votes on it. Validators then download the new binary, which has the new network features and upgrades. Then validators run a software called Cosmoverse, which it connects two binaries, the existing validator node binary and the new binary. And at the block activation time, Cosmoverse in real time swaps binaries. Now that's kind of scary for me because it introduces insane coordination costs. If I was coordinating a hard fork with Cosmos, I would have to ensure all validators are online around the block activation. And it predictably leads to chain stalls. Cosmos Hub chain stall comes to mind. If you want me, a great way to visualize it using Batman, right? Imagine Batman had to swap car engine on a moving car while the car is moving, swapping the car engine. It's insanely hard. So there must be a better way. And it turns out there is a better way. So you can adopt an Ethereum-based Heartwork mechanism using what we call if statement logic for network upgrades. So the core devs would, let's use the CIP as an example. They can align on the activation block for core features. The core dev then release the binary with logic for the Heartwork upgrade, targeting, let's say, 4 weeks in the future, after it's been tested on testnet. The validators, all they got to do is run the new binary ahead of time and confirm that they're running the new binary with the core devs. Now, at Heartwork block activation time, an if statement kicks in. If block X, where X stands for the Heartwork block number, run Y, and Y is the logic for the new feature to upgrade. This minimizes coordination costs significantly. It's kind of like if Batman changes the car engine in the garage ahead of time, and the features in that new car engine activate 1 month in the future, which is much easier to do. But this is not enough. We talked about defense, but defense is not enough. Now let's talk about attack strategies. How do you defeat the dragon? So embracing modular architecture and becoming modular aligned is one attack strategy that Cosmos can use as an attack. Also, minimizing on-chain governance as much as possible. So what do we mean when we say modular architecture? We're not talking about modular software. Modular blockchain overview. Here's a high-level overview. Now, historically, monolithic architecture included both consensus and execution in one layer. And in modular blockchain architecture, we're separating consensus and execution into different layers. And we introduced in Celestia what we call data availability sampling, where like nodes can sample less than 1% of the block to get 99.99% certainty about what is included in that block. Now, this results in scalability improvement. So instead of linear scalability, with data availability sampling, you can have exponential scalability, where the more transactions you have, because of the light node sampling, fees kind of stabilize over time. You also have a concept in Celestia called shared security. Now, in the existing Cosmos model, in a monolithic ecosystem, you have to trust two different validator sets if I want to bridge from zone 1 to zone 2, because zone 1 has a different validator set than zone 2, so IBC transfers are not as secure. With shared security, we're trusting the same validator set, which is like the one provided by Celestia. So zone 1 and zone 2 can submit, IBC is much more secure because you're trusting one security set. So modular blockchain mark a new beginning and close the gap between app devs and core dev. And remember, we said that Cosmos developers are unique in combining the strength of app and core development. So when you bridge the gap between app and core devs, Cosmos developer can become what we call roll-up developers. They don't have to worry anymore about consensus. All they got to worry about is deploying their app chain as a roll-up on top of Celestia, and using Celestia for shared security. Now, what about on-chain? Why is it bad? So on-chain is bad if it's coin-weighted voting. So Vitalik talks a lot about this, and a lot of other people. On-chain voting with coin-weighted voting creates inequalities and incentive misalignment, even if there's no attack happening. But if there is an attack, it happens through vote buying. So there's a huge misalignment there. Historically, L1 tried to encourage off-chain voting where possible, but for the dApps, on-chain voting was unavoidable. So off-chain decision-making happened in Ethereum and other places, but if you're a dApp, it's always going to be on-chain voting. And this is what we see in Cosmos today. However, light nodes and shared security solve this. So instead of coin-weighted voting, network participants vote with their light nodes if they're part of a roll-up. Your light node becomes your vote because you're deciding which binaries you decide to run. And shared security allows roll-ups to fork away while still maintaining the same level of security. So in other words, let's say I'm part of this roll-up community and I don't like the direction it's going. I can choose to fork that roll-up while still maintaining the same security set because we're reliant on a shared security model. I don't have to find different validators for when I fork and stuff. It's all part of the same shared security model. And this was previously not possible. So the future of Cosmos can be saved, and the cosmic dragon can be defeated by becoming modular aligned and embracing data availability sampling. So that's the new narrative that I believe Cosmos should adopt, being modular aligned. The interchain is not enough. Being modular aligned will actually strengthen Cosmos and defeat the cosmic dragon once and for all. So if you're interested in working with Celestia, many Cosmos chains right now are currently working with us, and reach out to me after if you want to talk more about this. We got Injective, Barachain, Osmosis, and Neutron. And if you're interested in converting your Cosmos chain to become a sovereign rollup on top of Celestia, you should check out rollkit.dev. And one of the lead devs on Rollkit is here. You can talk about using Rollkit and with our team later. Thank you. If you want to connect with me on Twitter, Telegram, or by email, hit me up. And yeah, thank you so much.